Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a special item for you. I will be doing a narration of a letter that Karen Cross, well, it is an open letter to Justice Beswick. Let me call it that. That's what it is, an open letter to Justice Beswick. And it's around 15 pages long, she said. So I said, you know what? Let me read it for you guys who are on YouTube, because this letter was posted on Facebook today. And I sincerely hope I can do the letter justice with my narration. So I'm going to ask you to do a big favor for me now. Can you go ahead, please, and give the video a thumbs up? Please go ahead, give the video a thumbs up from now on, and share the video far and wide so we can get her message out. And we're going to get this letter to Mrs. Beswick by hook or crook. Just trying to figure it out first, because it's in Facebook, as I said. But I am quite sure she will be getting it first thing in the morning, because Jamaican people stay. The minute people call your name, they're going to tell you, some here, so once we call your name, and they're going to say what they must say. And say, well, I will put things, and then forward it to her, so she will get it. In the meanwhile, I want to say thank you in advance for giving the video a thumbs up and for sharing. And for those who have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And to my silent listeners, welcome. All right, so now that we've got the preliminaries out of the way, let's get down to business. So this letter is posted 14 hours ago. It says, "Happy Easter, everyone. Could someone please ensure that Justice Beswick gets this? So anyone that is on friendly terms with Justice Beswick, some of you may move in that kind of a circle and rub shoulders with the justices. So if you could get this to her, we would appreciate it greatly." Yes. It says, an open letter to Justice Beswick. Justice Carol Lawrence Beswick, Chairwoman, Integrity Commission, and she gave the address. Dear Justice Lawrence Beswick, it is after an open letter, so it has that format. Please accept my best wishes for you and your family. I hope this note finds you in good health, and so do we all, right? Yes. Let me start with two quotes from two people who are as politically different as night is from day. First, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was the president of the US, a quote so overused it has somewhat become corny. And she's quoting him now. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. You remember that? Yes. Secondly, the Iron Lady herself, Margaret Hilda Thatcher, and I do believe she's a dame. So that would be Dame Margaret Hilda Thatcher. She's quoting her now. She said, in politics, if you want anything said, ask a man. If you want anything done, ask a woman. You heard that? Let me repeat it. Margaret Thatcher said, in politics, when you're talking about politics, if you want anything said, ask a man. Love to talk. But if you want anything done, you ask a woman. She'll get it done for you. Now, she then goes into what she called a background. She said, my name is Karen Cecilia Cross. I am a passionate citizen of Jamaica. I wish I could use the words upstanding citizen, but that was in another life. My current life now includes house cleaning, yard cleaning, road sweeping, dogs, birds, plants, and proper garbage disposal. Basically, I am a household helper. It also includes loudly making a nuisance of myself on social media too much time on my hands, is what she said. It would not be presumptuous to say that I'm a YouTuber. That is a big thing, which would require at least 50,000 subscribers. I would not say that I am an influencer either, as that is a totally different dynamic that would require people actually listening to me and following my advice. For that, I can only hope. But every now and then, when I'm having a senior moment and I want to get some things off my chest, I go YouTubing. I hope you listen and subscribe. She's asking Justice Carol Beswick to listen and subscribe. Yes. Now that we have broken the ice to pieces, let me go ahead and see if I can intrigue you enough to think about what I have to say and act accordingly, or at least amuse you enough. Maybe both. I am not asking for us to agree to disagree. In fact, I am asking for you to fully agree, if that's not too much to ask. Another thing about me, I don't lie, simply because lies have a way of catching up with you, and my fragile mind, I fear, would not be able to keep up. Mom, the entirety of this note to you is about the integrity of the commission that you now lead. The Integrity Commission, both in a general sense and some specific ways. I hope I can provide you with some cogent information that will help you understand what Mr. Bartlett and Mrs. Johnson Smith is asking of you and why you have an obligation to comply with their request. I hope I can also get you to understand that while you are an independent body, there is a political directorate to which we all are bound. The survival of this island experiment that we call Jamaica is dependent on just a few things. No matter what else anybody wants to add to it, everything else is dependent on those few things. Primary among those few things is peace. Once that exists, we are in good shape to achieve the other things. And this is where I would like to begin. Please bear with me, Mom. I tend to be a little long-winded. Very true. But we need context. And to give the context, she begins with part 1. The 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, once said, "If given the choice between righteousness and peace, I choose righteousness." This is an argument that I wholeheartedly embrace without reservation. Roosevelt made this point in a discussion with his War Secretary William Taft, who became the 27th President of the United States, and his Treasury Secretary Lyman Gage, in their discussions about why it was so difficult to win the peace after the Revolutionary War, which occurred between 1775 and 1783, that's in the US, which then led to the Civil War, which occurred between 1861 to 1865. They want to know why it was so difficult to win the peace after those two major wars in the United States, internal wars. Roosevelt was contending that after these two wars, neither America nor the world had come to terms in finding a way to win the peace. So after them engaged in these internal warfares, nobody seemed to have been able to figure out how they're going to now create peace in the country. I guess he was talking about how unsettled things still were after those two wars. Apart from Nostradamus, Teddy Roosevelt also foresaw the coming wars because things were still chaotic, and it appeared to him that nobody seemed to give a damn about fighting the peace. So, Roosevelt correctly surmised that there would be more wars before peace can be won. He also concluded that peace comes only through war, while, in the same breath, he recognized that after the war is over, the dust is settled, the guns are hung, the men gone home to their wives, homes are rebuilt, families, whatever is left of them, reunited, then the real war begins. The war of fighting for the peace. That is what she's calling the real war. Then she moved on to part 2. Mom, while I am willingly giving you the benefit of the doubt, it's kind of hard for me to conclude that you would not be aware of some of the things I am going to say. But for you, Mom, I am comfortable in giving you the benefit of the doubt that you are unaware of some of what I am about to say. Please bear with me. These things need to be said. So here goes. Our young island of Jamaica has been fighting the peace since 1838 through to 1865. 1838, you will recall, we got emancipated, those of us who were slaves, from those of us who were slave masters. And in 1865, you'll remember that was the Morant Bay Rebellion. Each of these rebellions ended in limited achievements, but still we fumbled the peace. In other words, we're never able to get the island in a peaceful state. Norman Washington Manley and Alexander Bustamante were partially successful in the War for Peace, which led to independence in 1962. The best we did so far in securing the peace when we got independence in 1962. And you will recall that a great many people in the island were united at that point. Two political parties were at one. People wanted them independence. So that, I suppose, is what she's referring to as securing the peace, unity. Then the 70s came along in a violent and destructive way, and it showed up Norman and his cousins' limited past successes in their attempt to win the peace because of the great divide that occurred in the 70s. Here in 2025, the war for the peace continues every day, but no longer can ordinary citizens be blamed for its slow success, because that feat belongs to Mark Jefferson Golding. For the past 4 years, Mark Jefferson Golding, president of the People's National Party and leader of the opposition in his quest for power, has been haggling for civil unrest and maybe even outright civil war in this country. He has been looking for every which way, except through free and fair elections, to seize power, just like he did to take control of the PNP. He has repeatedly signaled this through his language, utterances, and actions. One such utterance, which is well documented on social media, goes like this. And she's quoting him. The labor right them nah give up power so easy. So we have to get wicked upon them. And then she said in another, me a jungle me come from, which is not true. He's not from jungle. He is setting up man to go fight war for him. Yes, when you talk about your junglist, you're identifying with the people. And if you tell them to go do whatever, then they will do it because you're one of them. That's what she's saying there. He is not a junglist, she's saying. He is an Englishman. a resident alien of Jamaica. Both references seem to point to his willingness to promote political violence. To most of us, these utterances represent remnants of Jamaica's darkest past, particularly in the 1970s. I am referencing these things to give you a basic understanding of the political temperature that is currently stirring in the country and how the actions of the Integrity Commission have fueled this heat and is complicit in the present political rancor that from time to time threatens to turn violent, and designed to untether the fragile peace. From mid-2023 leading up to and after the local government elections of 2024, Mark Golding, Dayton Campbell, and other high-ranking members of the People's National Party were out in the public space daily shouting at the top of their lungs that the Prime Minister of Jamaica is a crook. Now, under normal circumstances, it would be accepted as politicking and campaigning because an election is in the cards. However, this became more than that when both Mr. Golding and Mr. Campbell were providing information to the public that at first glance seemed to have been innuendos and propaganda. On deeper examination, we discovered just how dark and corrupt it was. It was a sustained attack on the Prime Minister with what appears to have been confidential information received from elements within the Integrity Commission. The information they were specifically spouting was that the Integrity Commission has a list of 6 persons they are investigating for illicit enrichment. They intimated that the Prime Minister was on that list. It quickly became a political battle cry. The illicit 6, the illicit 6. On every political platform, they were shouting it. At one point, it became the illicit 8. It's probably about 20 now. In the case of Dayton Campbell, he went out and started to say that the country must prepare for elections by December of 2024 or sometime within the next 2 to 3 months. He was also saying that the Prime Minister will have to resign because the Integrity Commission was going to charge him for some crime that only they knew. I wonder if you can imagine just how baffled some of us were about that. Our questions were simple. If the Integrity Commission is investigating the illicit 6, and if the Integrity Commission is planning to charge a Prime Minister for an invisible crime, how did Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell come by that information? Who told them that? Could it have come from the Parliament? On investigation, we discovered that Parliament had not received any report from the Integrity Commission to back up what Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell were saying. It was even more terrifying when you consider that Mr. Campbell himself is not even a member of Parliament. So we concluded that they did not get that information from the Parliament. So where, who, why, when? How did they get that information? If not from the Integrity Commissioners themselves. To add to our befuddlement was the confidence with which Dayton Campbell and Mark Golding were saying these things. The certainty with which they said it, both in their voice and their posture. I hope you are still with me, Mom. Having established this information could only have been given to Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell by someone in the hierarchy of the Integrity Commission. We expected the Integrity Commission to come out swinging to protect the Commission's integrity and re-establish trust with the Jamaican people. We expected the Integrity Commission to distance itself from this breach of conduct and confidentiality, whether it is true or not. Would you agree with me, Mom, that the integrity of the Commission was badly damaged by the silence on the matter? So, in the absence of their acknowledgement or denial, we asked Sherlock Holmes to put it into perspective for us. And he did with this. And she's quoting what Sherlock Holmes said. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. What did Sherlock say? When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, however it sounds incredible, it must be the truth. We took the cue. The Jamaican social media warriors here and abroad took matters into their own hands. Labor rights, authentic PMP, the resistance, and ordinary Jamaicans all over the world, we pushed back. And we were not kind about it. Very unkind, I must say, Carol Beswick, Justice Beswick, very unkind. We battered and bruised and beat the Integrity Commission for their lack of credibility and integrity. We called out Justice Panton and Greg Christie in particular because we think they are the ringleaders. I am confident they are. Imagine this with me, Mom. The anti-corruption body charged with upholding the integrity of our public officials are themselves corrupt. Imagine that. And throughout the whole fiasco, the IC was silent. Silent when one of the two major political parties is publicly declaring with alarming confidence that they have inside information on the Integrity Commission's decision relating to their opponent. Let me read that for you again, Justice Beswick. The Integrity Commission was silent in the face, right, of one of the two major political parties declaring publicly with alarming confidence that they have inside information on the Integrity Commission's decision relating to their opponent. It is a stunning act of corruption. The Integrity Commission did not correct or deny what Mark Golding or Dayton Campbell were saying. They did not send out a warning to Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell to stop like they do with the media. When Nationwide News Network was telling us what was in that report about wholeness, they came out and they told Nationwide what the law said and the media houses that are talking about these things. And yet when for months, Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell and others in the PNP were on the political platform telling the people what going to happen, they were silent. That's what Karen is saying here. They did not tell them to stop. They did not come out and read the section of the law pertaining to not discussing matters that are before the commission. They never give them no warning. That's what she's saying. They did nothing. They were silent. Right? The Integrity Commission did not distance themselves from what Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell were saying. Nothing. Silence. The Integrity Commission did not issue a statement for Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell to cease and desist. They said nothing. They were silent. We concluded it was a witch hunt. led by Justice Panton and Greg Christie, designed to bring down the Prime Minister of Jamaica, a coup d'etat led by Mark Goling. But when confronted with the impossible, the rational mind will grope for the logical. So we did. The Integrity Commission stayed silent. They did nothing to shut down the utterances from Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell. The Integrity Commission, by their actions or non-action, are the ones who have brought the Commission into public disrepute. And basically, by that action or non-action, place the Commission on the list of public enemy number 1, cogent information. So, Mom, now we are at an important crossroads in the saga, and your actions, or lack of it, are now in the spotlight. Part 3. I have high hopes for the Commission under your leadership. Yes, I have. But now, after all that Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell have said, which casts the Integrity Commission as a corrupt body and causes the good folks of Jamaica to lose confidence in our supposedly anti-corruption body, then voila, Dayton Campbell's friend of 20 years get the job that Mrs. Kamika Prince had and was told not to reapply for. Mom, cogent information, confidence, accident of fate. Lucky for us, Freud says there are no coincidences. Nothing is ever accidental. So, now this is the part about fighting for the peace. As of about 6 months ago, the Integrity Commission has no integrity, none. We trust nothing you say. The Jamaican people question the Commission's motives. Everything that the Commission does going forward will be met with criticism, cynicism, suspicion, and doubts. And yes, some shouting and noise, muddling the peace. In other words, the Integrity Commission is now going to be a part of the problem why we cannot achieve the peace. In the way that Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell exposed the Integrity Commission as a corrupt body, when some Jamaicans decided to express their freedom to peacefully protest at the offices of the Integrity Commission, Greg Christie raised the alarm, called the police, suited up with tactical gear, and started making claims to suggest that the peaceful Jamaican citizens who have the right to peacefully protest had intended to physically harm members of the Integrity Commission staff, which was a damn lie. Pardon the language. No trust, Mom. It will be a constant war, no peace in sight. All of this is because of what Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell did, and Justice Panton and Greg Christie did and did not do. Trust has been eroded completely, which leads us now to the present furor. Part 4. The Integrity Commission is an independent body, but Mom, I don't think you understand the balance that you have to establish between the independence of the Commission and the political realities that the Commission has to operate within. The Commission is not a law unto itself. It was established under laws passed by politicians who make up King Charles III Parliament here in Kingston, Jamaica. So let me respectfully say this. Mr. Bartlett is the leader of government business in His Majesty's Parliament. That job was given to him because he was elected from the great constituency of East Central St. James, where in 2020, 7,340 citizens voted for him to represent them in King Charles III Parliament, a margin of 4,145 votes over his PNP opponent. Mrs. Kamina Johnson-Smith is a Senate leader on the government side. Respective positions that came about because in 2020, over 700,000 Jamaicans went out and voted, a majority of which voted for the Jamaica Labour Party, headed by Mr. Andrew Holness. With all due respect, ma'am, if you have a matter that threatens the very foundation of trust between an independent body charged with holding public servants to account, and the parliamentarians that passed those laws to give you that power, without hesitation, you are compelled to honor that request. You should just do it, cogent information or not. The same goes if the opposition makes such a request. But your response could also have been a letter to ask the writers of the request to provide you with any information they might have to guide you in this inquiry, instead of smacking them down in an attempt to humiliate them. That more open-minded response from you would have enhanced a better relationship between the lawmakers and the people charged with upholding those laws. Instead, you basically told Bartlett and Mrs. Johnson-Smith to go suck their mama. Please forgive my language, ma'am. I mean no disrespect to you, but I am sure you are accustomed to this language, being a judge and all. Plus, Mark Golding is pushing for this kind of language to become a part of our everyday conversation. So let's practice. But I apologize if it offends you. It is not my intention. I have not seen Mr. Bartlett's or Mrs. Kamina Johnson-Smith letter to you where I could quote what they ask of you. But even if I did, this is the way I am summarizing it. Mr. Bartlett and Mrs. Kamina Johnson-Smith ask that you open an internal inquiry into reports about the manner in which the former Director of Prosecution, Mrs. Keisha Prince Kamika, came under pressure not to reapply for the renewal of her contract. In addition, both Mr. Bartlett and Mrs. Johnson-Smith ask that you also look into the circumstances under which Mr. Ranif Lawrence was recently appointed in the said position to act as Director of Corruption Prosecution, with particular concerns about his close relationship with Mr. Dayton Campbell, General Secretary of the People's National Party. It is my humble opinion that these are reasonable requests based on all the cogent information that I have outlined above. I have shown you the connections and established the motives for the cogent information that you seek. It is not an accident why I took pains to go through the events and name both Mr. Golding and Mr. Campbell several times. It is intended to focus you on the cogent information that you seek and to enlighten you and show you why the question of the appointment of Mr. Lawrence is very concerning to all. The request should also be taken as an opportunity to not only ease the tensions between the two political parties and their supporters, but also to give breathing room to the embattled Integrity Commission, which has been facing an onslaught from the public about its suspicious submissions to Parliament and its members' public outbursts against the government, and we're talking about Greg Christie, and a seemingly coordinated effort between the Integrity Commission and members of the leadership of the People's National Party to discredit the government and target the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness. Yes, Mom, your job is supposed to be one of independence, but you truly cannot believe that your job is totally independent from the political directorate that passed those laws. It never was. It never will be. Sections of our society have spent enormous amounts of time trying to separate things of importance from politics, but even they know that it is not possible. Separating from blatant political interference and separating from the politics of parliamentary power are two different things. One is undue influence with an aim to corrupt. The other is that the commission is an act of parliament that came about through the political directorate in the form of parliamentarians who make the laws that make your commission relevant. They are the lawmakers, all 84 of them. If they have concerns about something and they publicly express that concern and write to you for clarity, you have a responsibility to respect their power and authority by giving them that clarity. So, it is important, Mom, for you to understand the dynamics of the politics of being independent. Indeed, it is impossible for you to do your job without a clear understanding of the political component that is necessary to give credibility both to your decisions and our acceptance of those decisions. The power always lies in our parliament and the women and men who the people elected to represent them. With this said, Mom, you have an obligation to accept this request from Mr. Bartlett and Mrs. Johnson Smith. Now that you have the cogent information, thank you for taking the time out to read my rant. God bless you. Karen Cecilia Cross. Woo, that was a marathon. What do you think about it? The first thing you want to note, the main theme is the cogent information. When Justice Beswick wrote back to the parliamentarians and saying, basically, I hear you, but you have not provided me with any cogent information, any evidence, any information that I can go and now start an investigation, is what she was saying. So Karen is providing her with what she is calling cogent information. And the first thing that Karen is saying, that Beswick needs to be more accommodating, respectful to the parliamentarians. They, after all, are the elected people. Nobody elect nobody in the Integrity Commission. The parliamentary set up this body in order to police themselves and the other civil servants, right? That's why they were established, and they were given certain powers to carry out their functions. And some funny things have been happening. An integrity body is supposed to be above suspicion. And then you have one of the political parties. Oh, they're talking about things that them say going to happen. Right? But it was when, I believe it was August 20, when Julian Robinson said at the women's movement that come September, there is going to be a bombshell is basically what he was saying. Big information, right? And that report into somebody who is going to be charged for illicit enrichment, if my memory serves me right. That person is so big that it will require a general election within 3 months, and he's telling the party that they must prepare themselves. Now, he said that. It wasn't until in September, about the 9th or the 5th or the 9th, thereabouts, when 2 reports went to the Integrity Commission. And they specifically asked that the Speaker should recuse herself from the matter. That's when we start to realize now, that hold on here now, if the Speaker must recuse herself, then whatever it is must have something to do with her husband. Well, the Parliament was out. A nationwide news network, being very enterprising, they got the information evidently and they were reading out parts of it. That's when Justice Panton came out and started to quote the section of the law that says that, this matter should not be discussed until it is tabled in Parliament. What Karen was anxious to let Justice Beswick understand is that either Julian is a prophet, Dayton Campbell and Mark Golding are also prophets. Where did they get this information from? Where could they have gotten that information from? It couldn't come from the Parliament. Now, she intimated that it came from the commissioners themselves. And you might say, well, how would we come to that conclusion? Let me tell you why. Because the process is, when the statutory declarations go to the Integrity Commission, it goes to the Director of Information and Complaints. He is the one who handles all of the matters that come before the Commission in terms of those statutory declarations. He also receives complaints from the public and information from the public about possible corruption and so on. That's what he does. That person is Craig Beresford. You remember him? Long time when I talk about Mas Craig, yes, man, him didn't want to lock a portion in our cabinet when they refused to give him information that he needed on time. Same one. So when the statutory declaration goes to the commission, it goes to his desk. He is the one that examines the declarations, and he is the one who recommends the statutory declaration to be certified to the commissioners after he has determined that the statutory declaration is duly completed. If, on the other hand, he finds something that requires investigation, listen up now, he is the one that is going to recommend that the commission refer the matter to the investigator. When he does that, he sends it to Greg Christie, who then takes it to the commissioners. Following the process? So when Andrew Holness's statutory declarations went before him, and he found that there were some bank accounts that were left off, and he would then refer the matter to be investigated, but he can't pass it to the investigator. It has to go to the commissioners, and for it to go to the commissioner, it has to pass through Greg Christie. So Greg Christie would know that there is a matter being investigated, right? And that he was referred to the investigator. That is what Greg Christie would know. It would go to the commissioners, and they would send the matter of the referral to the Director of Investigation, who carries out his investigation. When the investigation is complete, and if the investigator thinks that there is something to prosecute the Prime Minister on, as he did, he then refers the matter to the Director of Corruption Prosecution, but it doesn't go straight to her. It goes back to Greg Christie, who then sends it on to the commission, and he also sits with the commission. the 5 commissioners. So this is where it's at now. So in August, they heard that Andrew Holness was preferred or referred to for prosecution to the Director of Corruption Prosecution. That was what Julian was reporting. That was what Dayton was reporting, and that was what Mark Goulding was reporting. That somebody was referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution in the matter of illicit enrichment, a parliamentarian so big that it would cause the election to be called within 3 months. That's what they were predicting. So they knew that Holness was referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for prosecution. That is what that told us. Now, what they did not know was that the Kamika, the Director of Corruption Prosecution, she said there should be no prosecution, and she gave her reasons why she cannot go ahead with this prosecution. She never felt she could win. And that is one thing they did not know, because they were all gung-ho and all about the place that talk about this thing, so they didn't know. So we know that the leak did not come from that office. It had to come from those who wouldn't be in the know. The Director of Investigation either did the report himself, or he has a secretary that typed the report. If he had a secretary, then he would know what he was recommending, and she would know what he was recommending. If he did not use a secretary and typed it himself, then he alone in the office would know that he was referring the Prime Minister's case to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for prosecution. He alone would know that from that department, because he was the one who made that decision. Greg Christie would have known, because he was the one that would have handed the referral over to the commissioners, and he also sits on the commission. And the 5 commissioners would know, right? Also, Prince Kamika would know, because she would have received the documentation that Holness must be prosecuted because of these evidence that the investigator found. So those are the persons who would know. These are all top-ranking members in the commission, right? So when she said that it's coming from the commissioners, yes, it has to come from there, or it could come from Christie, who sits with the commission, or it could come from the investigator himself. It could come from Kamika as well, right? But if it had come from her, then they would have known that she said there is nothing to prosecute the Prime Minister on. She not go able to win the case, and therefore she's not going forward with it. That they didn't know. You see? So we take her out of the picture and look then at the 5 commissioners, Christie, and the investigator. If Craig Beresford knew, he ought not to know, because that is not his business. His business is to refer the statutory declarations. It's not his business to know what else is going on. It's not inconceivable that they would have told him, but if they did that, they might well be acting outside of the law. So that is where that is. So what do you think about what Karen had to say? I mean, you can always play it back and listen again. I hope I faithfully narrated her letter so you understand what she's saying. And I'd love to hear your comments, whether you agree or disagree with her. And if you agree or disagree, please say why. Anyway, folks, that's it for me today. Thank you for joining me, for sharing, liking, subscribing, and leaving your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.